Can you imagine what school would be like with no summer break? Well, that's the case for a lot of schools here in Raleigh and the surrounding suburbs. No summer break may sound awful for kids, but I'm here to tell you it may be your new favorite thing for both you and your kids. Let's go. I'm Keith O'Hare, and I'm a realtor who helps buyers and sellers in the Raleigh-Durham market. My own kids, 2 out of 3, which are elementary school age, go to a year-round school, and my wife was a teacher for 14 years, and most of her teaching career was in a year-round school, so I know this topic. In fact, I guess you can say I've done my homework. Insert your eye roll now. Before I get started, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so I know you want more content like this video. Before I explain how year-round schools work, first you need to understand where you can find the year-round schools and how public schools work in North Carolina. In North Carolina, most of our schools are county-based. Now that's different from a lot of other parts of the country where it's based on which town you live in or which city you live in. The majority of year-round schools in North Carolina are found in Wake County. Now, Wake County is in the central part of North Carolina. That is where Raleigh, the state capital, is located. Popular suburbs of Cary, Apex, Fuquay-Varina, Holly Springs, Wendell, Morrisville, all part of the Wake County school system. The Wake County school system has nearly 200 schools and serves about 160,000 students, which makes it the 15th largest school system in the entire nation. So while in North Carolina, it's important to choose which town you live in based on what you like, the schools are driven by which county you live in. So make sure if you want a year-round school, for the most part, you need to be in Wake County. And that's not all the schools in Wake County are year-round, but a lot of them are. The one big exception is the Chapel Hill Carrboro school system, which is different from Orange County schools. So that's the one exception, but for the Raleigh-Durham area, there's Durham Public Schools and there's Wake County Public Schools. So Wake County is what we're really going to focus on mostly today to talk about those year-round schools. Year-round schools are all across Wake County. They can be found in all the different towns I previously mentioned, but they only occur at the elementary and the middle school level. So there is no such thing in North Carolina as a year-round high school at the public school level. So at the public school level in Wake County, you're looking at elementary and middle for those year-round schools. In North Carolina, elementary is kindergarten through 5th grade and middle school is 6th grade through 8th grade. You may be asking, why do year-round schools even exist? The rationale is twofold. The first reason is rather than give you that big, long summer break, how the year-round schools work in North Carolina is it breaks the year up into really 4 different quarters with a break after each quarter. So you're getting breaks all throughout the year rather than having that big, long summer break. So from an academic learning perspective, from a student retention perspective, you're not having that huge, what we call summer slide in education, where you're going to be forgetting information that you just learned over the school year because you have a really long summer break. You're having smaller breaks of about 3 weeks typically, so you're less likely to forget stuff, so you can retain that information all year long, and you're not having that summer dip. So from an academic learning perspective, that is a huge advantage of year-round schools. The second rationale is from a tax and utilization perspective. Now think about it. Summer break means you have a vacant building where you are not utilizing a school and you can only have a certain capacity. With a year-round school, you can have a larger student base because these kids are rotating out. So there's always what we call a track out of school. So there's one group of kids that are on break. So you can have a larger student population at a school, which means you don't need to build as many schools because the schools have a higher capacity. And then they're also being utilized all year round. Schools that have a summer break mean a huge government asset of a giant school not being utilized really a quarter of the year. That's a huge fraction of the year where a building is not being utilized, and that's not the most effective use. So because year-round schools can be used all year round and have a larger student population, from a tax perspective and having your tax dollars put to use, it is a more efficient and effective way to utilize those tax dollars. All right, that's a whole lot of background information, but it provides important context. Now let's get into the nuts and bolts of how does a year-round school actually operate. Here's a look at the famous multi-track year-round schedule for Wake County schools that are year-round schools. Now let's take a deep dive look at this calendar. Your entire schedule is based off of what track you are on when you're at a year-round school. So in this calendar, there's track 1, 2, 3, and 4. So your schedule is determined based on which track you are on. Let's walk through an example and take a look at track 3, which is the schedule that my family is on and that my 2 kids that are in elementary school are on track 3. The first thing to know is the school year starts in July. Yes, July. We're not talking late August or early September like other parts of the country. School starts in July, right after the July 4th holiday, typically. We personally love track 3 and when we have our breaks, but it is a bit of a clunky start to the school year. So you start for 3 weeks, then you get a 3-week break, which is called a track out. So breaks, no summer breaks, you get track outs incrementally throughout the year. The way track outs work is rather than having about 12 weeks of summer, you have 3-week breaks spread throughout the year. So in this case, track 3 is a bit of a clunkier start, but you get a 3-week break, then you go in for 9 weeks, and then you get another 3-week break, and that cycles all throughout the year. But again, your breaks are determined based on which track you are on. So if we were looking at the schedule for track 3 and when their track out breaks are, here's when they would occur. At the end of July through about mid-August, then they're in for 9 weeks, and then about towards the end of October through about the early November is when the next break is, then in again for another 9 weeks. You have some of the winter holidays there. And then the next track out break occurs at the end of January through about mid-February, then again in for about 9 weeks. And then they have another break about end of April through about the early part of May, and then in for another 9 weeks, and then the end of the school year. Now remember, that is the break schedule for track 3. If you're on tracks 1, 2, or 4, your breaks occur at different times. One of the best parts of the year-round schedule is that you get breaks when other kids are typically in school. So we can take breaks at all different points of the year and have all sorts of fun family vacations that other people might not get to do. Some things that we've done is take advantage of going to the mountains in that October break. It's a beautiful time to visit the mountains of North Carolina in October. In that January, February break, we did a trip to Disney and took advantage of that off-peak time of going to Disney when it's not super hot or super crowded. We've been able to enjoy the beautiful beaches of North Carolina in that end of April, early May track out, as well as planning a family trip to the beach in August as well. A little bit hot, but it is a beautiful time to be at the coast of North Carolina. Our family personally loves this schedule. We love being able to take vacations throughout the year and do it in smaller chunks, then figure out a plan for our kids for 12 plus weeks. I'm a busy real estate agent. I can't take the whole summer off. So being able to take smaller chunks throughout the year and take those smaller vacations or bigger vacations for a week at a time at different points of the year has worked out great. So I can't take the full summer off. I want to sell houses and I want you to buy one too. So you want to make sure I'm around the summer to help you out. As I mentioned, the year-round schedule is particularly great for working parents because it's hard to come up with plans for your kids for an entire summer versus if you're doing it at 3-week chunks at a time, it's much more manageable. With a 3-week track out, you might take 1 week for vacation. You might have your kid go to something called a track out camp. There's a whole industry in Wake County geared around the year-round schedule. So there's all sorts of fun camps that the kids can do. My kids love going to them. They're around themes like Legos, there's art camps, there's sports camps, you name it. There's probably a camp that your kid can go in for that week. They can do multiple weeks of camps. You could ship them off to the grandparents for a little bit. So it's easy to figure out, and that time goes by fast, those 3-week chunks of time versus figuring out an entire summer, what are we gonna do to entertain our kids? Because we can't take all that time off work versus 3 weeks, it can just fly by. A con of this schedule is if you have a really flexible job where you could take the summer off and maybe work remotely or go on these really long trips, the year-round schedule is tough to manage that. So again, it's 3-week chunks at a time. So if you want that whole summer break, the year-round schedule will not work for you because you're only gonna be in breaks of 3 weeks at a time. The other big thing to think about is if you have multiple kids at multiple different ages, trying to coordinate with the year-round schedule can be a little bit challenging. So for example, I have 3 kids, 2 are in elementary school, 1 is about 2.5, about to turn 3. That's a tough age. Right now, based on my kids' ages and for the next several years, the year-round schedule will be fantastic for us. We will love it and it will be perfect for our family. The real issue occurs later on when you have a kid that goes off to high school and if you still have a kid on a year-round middle school schedule or a year-round elementary school schedule. Now remember, in North Carolina and in Wake County, there are no year-round high schools. They are on a traditional schedule, so they have that summer break. Versus if you have kids on a middle school or an elementary school year-round schedule, they're going to be following that track out schedule. So that means you could have 1 or 2 kids on the year-round schedule or more. I don't know how many kids you have. If you have tons of kids, you could have a lot of kids on that year-round track out schedule. And your older kids could be on the high school traditional schedule. So your kids can be on 2 different schedules, and that could be really tough to align those family vacations or those family trips. So that's certainly something to factor out if you have older kids or kids that are spread apart in age by a few years, is that later on scheduling with the year-round and the traditional could be a little bit challenging. With each of my kids being about 3.5 years apart in age, it will be a challenge for us in the future and something that we'll have to navigate. But for right now, we love the year-round schedule. That was a lot to unpack and digest in one one video. Let me know in the comments what you think about the year-round schedule. Do you have any questions? What do you think about it? Does it work for you? And also be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so I know to make more content like this and you can be the first to find out. If you're planning a move to the Raleigh-Durham area of North Carolina and need help navigating schools, particularly the year-round school system, let me know and I would be happy to help and be your resource and be your agent of choice. You can email me at info@keithorealty.com or the number on your screen. See you next time.